What? Mate.
I thought you were a seasoned pro.
How long have you known me? Have you listened to any episodes, Steve?
Only the ones I'm on.
Yeah. That's what we like, a good, strong narcissist.
Yeah, thank you.
This show seems to be full of them. Welcome to Cloud Realities, an original podcast from Capgemini. And this week we are live again, this time at Microsoft Ignite at McCormick Place in Chicago. I'm Dave Chapman.
I'm Rob Kernan.
And joining us later in this episode is Arun Ulag, Microsoft's Corporate Vice President of Azure Data. We'll come to that in time. But first, let's set a bit of a scene.
Ooh.
I know,
exciting,
it is exciting.
Isn't it?
I always like this bit of these conferences, setting the scene.
Setting the scene, you get the vibe. You've been around for a bit.
Energy is still in a reasonable place.
Not after last night, but yeah, okay, let's go within a reasonable place.
We'll come back to last night.
Oh, no, we won't.
There's a bit to unpick there. But joining us for a bit of a chat is a friend of the show, and I'm glad to welcome back Steve Webb, who's joined us before at these live events. Steve, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good to be back. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
How's the jet lag with you at the moment?
Suffering.
It's hit me brutally this afternoon, I'm not going to lie.
Hang on, guys. When you say jet lag, there's no other factor that may have involved into that at all. It's definitely jet lag, is it?
Some of us, Robert, drank with moderation and can handle ourselves.
and didn't get grumpy.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think in good spirits is how I felt. I don't know about you.
Likewise.
I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun. A little bit chaotic, but on the right side of chaotic. But it was the ambiguity, wasn't it, Rob? Was it the ambiguity that you couldn't deal with?
You know what I like, Dave? I like to know what's going on, when's it going to happen, and then go.
So booking a table for 3 and then showing up with 7 at a fully packed restaurant.
Not only that, it was a packed restaurant where you couldn't actually go anywhere, and we were constantly chaperoned around the restaurant with the staff telling us to move, at which point that happened for like 30 minutes. So that was, maybe one of the factors that got me slightly grumpy.
Can you still feel that tension, Steve? It's still there, isn't it? Still there. Anyway, let's get back to Ignite. So this is the first global conference from Microsoft since the pandemic. So there is a lot to talk about and a lot to sort of catch up on with the organization. I think in the meantime, they've done a few regional summits, that kind of thing. But I think this is their first return to the sort of big global conferences. There are 14,000 attendees in person here in Chicago and around 200,000 who are joining remotely. And there's something like 800 sessions being run, something like that.
Quite a lot. It's a fair old size as well. It's nicely laid out, though. I like. You know what is really good about this conference? This is all the exciting tech stuff going on. There's plenty of seats and places to sit down.
Now that's true.
Now, if you've been to other ones, it's really difficult to find a seat. Here, it's not a problem at all.
That's an excellent observation.
And as a man of a certain age, I like to be able to sit down.
Sit down.
Yeah, good sit
you
down.
Lose track of time occasionally?
Occasionally. Yeah. But it's like, you spot it and you go, that's actually how it should be.
Yeah, so the McCormick Center is a big, if you haven't been here, it is a very large conference venue in downtown Chicago over a number of different buildings and connected hotels. So yeah, there's an awful lot going on. As usual, there is a big trade floor. We'll come back to that a bit later on. It won't surprise you to hear that the big theme of the conference, and it is literally everywhere, is AI transformation.
You all right?
Something in terms of a term that I think over the course of the next conversations that we're going to have over the next few days, I want to unpick this notion of AI transformation and actually try to understand what that actually means at the moment.
And there was a little bit of that teased out in the keynote, and over the next few days, I think we will hear some more.
I have no doubt. Have you been in the trade floor yet?
I have, yes.
Every single stall, absolutely every single stall has got the acronym on it, hasn't it?
It has, yes, absolutely. And they've got a great big co-pilot area where you can go in and sort of see what's going on and talk to experts about it. So I think we're in that phase where people are learning about actually getting it done properly. In the keynote this morning, we heard a lot about getting ROI now on AI. So you've had your playtime. Now let's go and get some results.
Mm-hmm. But Steve, just go back to the conference venue for a bit. It's big, isn't it?
It is big.
Did you go for a bit of a walk around it yesterday?
I tried to find the podcast stage and it took me an hour. So yes, I fully checked out the entirety of the conference hall.
I was literally on the phone to Steve and kept saying to him, yeah, just come around here. You should find the main keynote area on your right-hand side. Follow around to the right. He'd be like, it's not on the right, it's on the left. I'm like, how can it be on the left? It's like completely on the other side of the building. And then another time on a different floor to where I thought we were. Yeah, it was confusing.
It's very confusing.
It is one of those
buildings. I found you in the end, so that was the main thing.
Thank God for that.
But yeah.
And so, have you been around the trade floor yet?
I've had a very quick look in there. Yeah, I checked out the keynote this morning as well, which I thought was good. I think we're going to get onto that.
We are indeed. We're going to do a little bit of a breakdown.
You know what was disappointing though? I couldn't find a mouse.
Why you think you will find peripherals being given away is beyond me.
There was a fair decent amount of stuff there.
You know, I went in there thinking I might try and get an iPhone 16 titanium, and you know what? There isn't any.
Rob, what was the best freebie you laid your hands on?
So actually,
because you're a man of, you like a freebie, don't you? I've known you for a while.
There was actually, I've only picked up one today, and there's an old friend who is now at a different organisation. I got a pair of socks. So, there's socks everywhere. I don't know where socks came from as a thing, but there's just everyone is giving away socks.
A sock's the new T-shirt?
Apparently so. It's socks, not T-shirts anymore.
We saw a company giving away a luggage tag. I thought that was quite a good idea.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, like a personalised luggage tag.
There you go.
And the conference merch, which is like a backpack with a water bottle, is actually surprisingly good.
The cable bag inside. Now, you know when you get excited, I opened it up and went, "Ooh, I didn't know this was in it." I saw
your little face when you opened that. It was
lit up like Christmas. It was early Christmas. Ooh, excited! I like a good cable.
Talking about Christmas,
yes,
Satya's keynote.
Oh yes,
that was like Christmas morning, wasn't
it? There was a lot in it, and he went at surprising pace. It was like there was a bit we'll get onto where it was like a machine gun of announcements.
It was boom, boom. Yeah. So, look, just give us a structure for the conversation, Ron. Ron. Ron.
All right, we'll go with Ron, shall we? I'm up for that.
It's the jet lag. Ron.
Of course it is, Dave.
Give us a framework for the conversation. So what are the big sections that he went through?
So the way he broke it down, opened up with it's a major platform shift, talked about the scaling, talked about the new scaling approaches, and they're getting much better, the multimodal interfaces and the augmentation with reasoning and planning, and patterns capability. So that's leading to longer term memory and deep context. So there's this split. He set out this, here's the future of AI theory and what's going on. And then he broke it down into three broad areas. So Copilot, which he described as the UI for AI, which I quite liked. Then he went into Copilot devices. And then he did Copilot and the AI stack, so the democratization of the technology.
Right.
And in the middle of all that, there was a load of silicon announcements, which were quite cool, and some data announcements, because obviously without good data, your AI doesn't work.
That is the truth.
So if you break it down, I think we're talking about four themes at this conference, which we will validate as we go through. The first one is agentic agents. Agents everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an agent and they're all connected.
And I think it is going to be the vehicle on which AI scales to enterprise scale.
Lots of talk about productivity, automation of toil, all the things we sort of thought about in the software world, now becoming to the personal productivity world, which is cool. And the average user can do it. There was huge announcements on silicon and chips and performance improvements, and they gave a great calculation of performance equals tokens divided by watt plus cost. Watts as in energy watts. There's a way to start to think about getting the density up in the efficiency of the compute. It was a fair bit on data and fabric and things like that and how that's important. But the one I quite liked at the end was the opening up of the AI stack and the democratization. So anybody can now build an agent. Anybody can use the Microsoft technology, and they're providing an environment for everybody to pick their models. And I think there was a horrendous amount of models to select. 1,800.
Yeah, I saw that.
And there was some bits in there as well about industry models, which I thought was good as well.
That's the start. The start of that.
And what's that looking like, Steve? Was he saying that Microsoft themselves are creating industry models, or are they looping in third-party models that can now be accessed through their stack?
Yeah, the latter, absolutely that. Yeah, the integration of third-party models. Maybe one or two of those are Microsoft, but to me it looked like they were all third-party.
It feels like the beginning of real monetization of underlying data, I would suggest.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. If you haven't got your data sorted to be able to embrace all this stuff that we're talking about, you're going to be left behind quite quickly. Because those who have got a decent data set up and it's all connected and well controlled and curated, then they'll be able to use this tech really, really quickly. I think it is surprising how fast you can deploy it now, as long as your data is in good order and you're in the right environment, which of course, David, is cloud.
We were talking to an analyst earlier, weren't we? And his perception was that and it's your point on democratization, that actually complex tools can be delivered by, or rather, they don't have to be delivered by highly skilled engineers anymore.
Yeah, that is the point around the. He actually said, as part of the keynote, if you've ever used rules in Outlook. And you were able to do that, you can build your own agent to automate stuff.
Yeah, right, amazing. Steve, what resonated with you in the keynote this morning?
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was coming, but it was the focus on agents. I think. I mean, it's interesting. The word agentic wasn't used until an hour in, right. But there was an awful lot of agent conversation. And to Rob's point, it was the simplification and the ease of use of creating agents, which I think, if we look into next year, that's it's going to be the year of agentic and the year of agents.
Yeah. So let's just dwell on agents a bit. And what is in your head, Rob, when you think about agents and how they're going to be deployed as a system across an organization?
So the way it was characterized was everything's got an agent. So I'm a salesperson or whatever, and I've got a meeting to prepare for. I tag the SharePoint agent where my data is. I then ask the LinkedIn agent. I then ask, the financial agent that plugs into the SAP system, and then they all work together to produce a corpus of information.
And I think that's the interesting point, isn't it? It's agents talking to other agents.
Yeah,
so it's this evolution of, if you think where we've started with Gen AI and this heavy human in the loop, to starting to build the trust between. We're then going to move to give that autonomy to an agent, and then we're going to move to multiple agents interacting and performing human-like tasks.
Essentially, the rise of Skynet has happened. We've had it announced this morning, so I don't know, start your watches and do your predictions.
In one of those apocalyptic films, when they show like clips of the news that are basically have run up to the major singularity.
This keynote will be the first one on the screen.
Exactly. They're like, we didn't see it coming. We all embraced the agents like they're our friends. If only we'd known.
Well, we kind of did, but we just ignored it.
The thing that I think, I don't know whether it gives an underpinning to that terrifying paranoia, it might do, is the dynamicness of it, if that's a word. The fact that agents will be able to make decisions faster than in real time and reconfigure how things are done. And that's all going to happen significantly faster than not only humans can operate an organization, say, but faster than a human can actually probably think.
Yeah, so what you'll get, if you do it right, and the West particularly has struggled with productivity in the last decade, this feels like an inflection point where we will, done properly, get incredible productivity boosts.
Yeah.
So it's the hope for the sort of, how do we get ourselves out of low gains in that area? And this feels like it's probably there.
Indeed it is. And so, Steve, some of the other things that Rob was pointing out, which are things like, the announcements around silicon, stuff going on in the data fabric, anything in that space that stood out to you?
I thought the one that Rob hasn't mentioned, which I thought he might, because it's something he's been wanting for some time.
Dear to my
now.
heart.
Yes, was the local announcement.
Right, yeah.
Which... certainly, if we're looking at secure payloads.
And this was a unit of the Azure cloud that you can put in your data center.
With
a full stack.
And you can run it at the edge. Yeah, you can run it.
Or
run
in
it at
your
the
car.
edge.
There's a ruggedized version.
Yeah.
You can throw a cloud in the back of your car. And
how big is it?
Big. There's one on the floor. You can go see one.
Yeah.
But, what was the word they used? I can't remember. But there was a way they... This had completely gone out of my head, Dave. Just move along now.
Preparation, Robert. Thanks for your
professional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, that's part of like not only move to edge, but is there is the things like sovereign cloud applicability
Exactly,
to that.
yeah, exactly that. So being able to run secure sovereign payloads, and obviously if you want to do it at the edge, you can do that too. So I think there's a little bit of, we need to unpack exactly what it provides, but it's certainly something that we've been wanting for a while. So yeah.
It's AI everywhere. That was it. That's what I was going to say, because with these devices and the Copilot,
so not cloud everywhere now.
No, it's AI everywhere. So you got the Copilot devices, and on the phone, they released a funky device which is go anywhere, connect into your 365 environment, get your desktop and your AI world there. So it's just ubiquitous AI.
Just in terms of that nomenclature there, right? What is actually quite surprising is the word cloud, other than our podcast, isn't really anywhere at this conference that I can see.
It's pivoted fast.
Yeah, really substantial. That is now the
have you guys thought about a rebranding? AI reality? I'm just throwing it out there.
You should be in podcasting with that kind of join up there. But yeah, no, I mean, we maybe should think about doing that. But
Dave, you could never suffer the trauma of coming up with a new name and getting it past everyone. Let's be honest.
It's hard enough the first time.
With it. Yeah.
It's hard enough the first time. All right. So look, hopefully that has given you a taste of the themes that are going to be with us for the next few days. We've got 7 Microsoft VPs joining us for conversations over the course of the next couple of days, and we're going to cover all of these areas. So we've got Azure AI represented. We have got Azure Data represented. We've got Purview. We've got Responsible AI, AI Core Platform, Developer Community. There's a series of threads that are all going to be kind of explored in a bit more detail with the people who are actually running them. So we are looking forward to that. Before we get onto that, though, there's one incredibly important theme of the week that you didn't have in your framework, Rob. Can you guess what it is?
It's pizza, Dave, is it?
It is.
I was looking at you going, knowing you and how you've talked a little bit about pizza over the last couple of days, just a little.
Can I voice my disappointment about last night?
Go for it.
Because I kept it to myself at the time because there was enough drama.
Enough going on. There's enough going on, yeah.
But I thought we were going for
deep pan.
Yeah.
Were you disappointed it was normal?
Well, I enjoyed the pizza, don't get me wrong. It was good pizza, but I was just looking to tick a box, and I didn't get to tick a box.
That's disappointing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of days left yet.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get around some of the big ones. So we did Lou Malnati's on Sunday night.
It was very nice.
It was pretty good. So Lou's is known as one of the 2 big giants of deep pan pizza, isn't it?
And I think that status is well deserved.
Yeah. The thing that surprised me about that pizza, and if you've had deep pan pizza, you would already know this, but I don't think I had, is that the dough is quite different to normal pizza.
It's like a pie.
It literally is more like a crust.
It's like a short crust pastry.
Yeah,
it's
which
weird,
is strange. Now, last night when we had the one that you felt a little let down by, Steve.
I know it was good pizza, don't get me wrong.
It still had like a Chicago type crust though, like a sort of a more breadsticky type crust than a standard bread.
It did. It was heavy, is how I would describe it.
Heavy, yeah. And that was at Pizzeria.
I don't know, you booked it.
What was it called?
For 3 people.
Portofino, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Marcel.
Yeah.
Jumping in there. Yeah, so Pizzeria Portofino we did last night. We did Malnati's, and then the one that we want to try and get to before the end of the week, which I hope we will, is Giordano's, which is deep pan, Steve, you'll be glad to know. And it's a debate between Malnati's and Giordano's as who's the king. So, that, I mean, look, who wouldn't come back for that kind of reportage, Rob?
Oh. Definitely not. Although, Dave, you have missed out the bit about your ambition with the spiciness level of the deep pan that you had and the results of you starting to sweat.
It was a bit rough.
It was.
I had one of those culminations of like, yeah, this is a bit spicy, but it also hit me at a jet lag moment. Took me down. Yeah, it did actually take me down quite badly. Marcel picked all of his spicy stuff out there. It was disappointing, isn't it? Anyway, look, hopefully that set the scene both of the conference, a little bit of a taste of Chicago, and where we might be going with Microsoft announcements and discussion over the course of the week. So stay with us. We've got an episode per day coming out with a number of conversations with Microsoft. But for now, let's go to our conversation with Arun Ulag on the data themes at this year's conference. Now, I am delighted to say that joining us is Arun Ulag, who's the Microsoft Corporate VP for Azure Data. Arun, how are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really absolutely delighted to be here.
Oh man, it's absolutely our pleasure. Thank you for making the time in what I'm assuming is an incredibly hectic schedule this week.
Yes, so this week is intense. We have so many exciting announcements we're making all the way up and down Microsoft, but especially in the data stack. So yes, it's been intense and it's been fun.
When did you get into Chicago?
I caught in yesterday afternoon.
Oh yeah, that's right into it then.
Right into it, and it was rehearsal after rehearsal after rehearsal, and then session after session after session. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I was looking at some stats for the conference when we were talking earlier in the show, and there's like 800 sessions or something like that.
Oh my God!
The next couple of days.
Wow! All right.
It is a lot, isn't it? It is a lot. Are you familiar with Chicago?
Not terribly. I've been here a couple of times, but mostly on business. But yes, I need to get to know the city more.
Yeah, it seems to be a very nice city. But look, enough of that. Why don't we just talk about Azure Data and what you guys have got in store for the next couple of days? So why don't we start with what might seem like a really obvious question, but definitionally in your head, what's Azure Data? What's the scope of it? What does it encompass for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my team and I, we build all the database technologies for Microsoft in different areas. So there's 5 areas that we work on. The first is just operational databases. Things like Azure SQL DB, SQL Server, Cosmos DB, Postgres, MySQL, etc. So that's the first area we work on. The second one is data integration. That connecting to different data sources, bringing data in, reshaping it, etc.
Right.
The third is big data analytics. Just providing the horsepower to analyze this massive volumes of data. The fourth is real-time intelligence, working with messaging stacks, data as it comes from IoT devices, logs, telemetry, stuff like that. And the fifth area is really business intelligence with Power BI. So these are the 5 areas my team and I work on. But across these 5 areas are all the database and data analytics technologies that Microsoft ships.
Now, did you take on the role pre the rise of AI? So it must have brought in an intense amount of additional work in terms of the product set and what you're doing to hang a load of these things together, to create data foundations.
Yeah, you're absolutely right because, AI has been there for ages, but especially with the launch of ChatGPT, it became a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And it's a really exciting time because AI is only as good as your data. It's data that's the fuel that powers AI. So if you're an enterprise customer, the best AI models, if you put garbage in, most likely you're going to get garbage out. So it's become incredibly important for customers to get their data estate ready for AI. Huge opportunity for customers, huge opportunity for Microsoft, huge opportunity for my team. So couldn't be more excited.
Well, we'll come back to the customer challenge in a second because it's something that really resonates with me, the challenge of how you get ready. So we'll come back to that. I know you guys have been working pretty hard on enabling that. But let's talk about the conference first. So coming into the conference this year, what are the big announcements coming out of your area?
Yeah, so we have a number of big announcements. I would put them into 2 categories. The first is just on a database side. We announced 2 things really. The first is the next version of SQL Server, which is SQL Server 2025. We announced the private preview of it. SQL Server, has been around for 3 decades, believe it or not. It's by far the world's...
it should get like when you've worked at
long
an
service award, a carriage clock or a watch or something like that.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking,
Yeah, it's amazing how this product has grown and evolved. There's millions and millions of developers who just absolutely love SQL Server.
Right.
It's a Microsoft product, but it runs in any location, on any cloud. SQL's just everywhere. And, the team has done a really good job getting the next version of SQL Server out like clockwork pretty much every 3 years. So guess what? It's 2025 is the next version of SQL coming out.
Right.
And so that's what we announced in private preview today. Lots of exciting capabilities on the SQL side. We're bringing, vector search and, natively into SQL Server, which is pretty much foundational for building AI applications. So, so that's really exciting for customers. Lots of capabilities on the security side, scalability side, just making it much more easier easier to secure and govern and run, the world's largest mission critical workloads. So that's coming with SQL. More capabilities that are coming with SQL 2025, and we also announced that from a cloud perspective, SQL Server will be natively integrated into Microsoft Fabric, and all of the data in SQL Server will be available in Fabric's OneLake, in the customer's tenant. So which is great because it gives customers that unified data estate that they're really, really looking for. So that we announced that, and we also announced that SQL Arc will be built into SQL Server, which is great because even if the SQL Server is running on premises, you can still use the Azure control plane to manage it, to secure it, to govern it, which is really exciting for customers because they want the management capabilities of Azure, but they often want to run SQL wherever they want to run it.
Right.
And so it really brings that together. So huge announcements on the SQL Server side, huge lots of excitement from the community. And then we also announced that, on Microsoft Fabric, we had some big announcements as well. But
So the one I liked on Fabric was connecting data everywhere. So there was that bit about it doesn't matter where your data sits. You don't have to think about bringing it together. But it was in there, as I said, it doesn't matter where it is, we'll connect it and we'll make good use of it. And I thought that was very powerful for clients that end up with a very high distributed data set. Suddenly they're able to tackle it with a lot of ease. And that takes away a lot of the pain.
It's definitely interested in going a little deeper on that because we know that most large organizations, for very good reasons, have got a very organic spread of data that's built up over decades and decades of time, and many attempts through different generations of technology to solve for that problem. So things like master data management and trying to put data architectures in place and trying to put enterprise architectures in place have traditionally foundered in most organizations because it just gets too hard. It gets too difficult. Trying to organize and structure your data gets very expensive. And so Fabric comes along, and to Rob's point, I think bringing together something that allows that organic shape to still exist, but make it accessible and make it secured and such like. So in your head, what's the shape of Fabric and what does it really bring to solve for that problem?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with the customer problem that you touched on.
Yeah.
As customers are looking to get their data estate ready for AI, it's just too hard because there's hundreds and hundreds of products and technologies out there, and it's only getting more fragmented, more complicated. So I like, what we do with Microsoft Fabric is really say, hey, you don't need all that complexity. Let's give you an end-to-end data platform that is really has all of the core capabilities you're looking for to go from raw data to AI or BI value in the hands of your customers, right? And that's really, really resonated. With Fabric, we make 4 promises. The first is that complete platform, everything from data integration to data engineering to data warehousing to data science and machine learning to business intelligence, all just built into Fabric and all delivered as a SaaS platform. So that's been really compelling for customers. We've also the second promise is really about a lake-centric and open architecture, where we introduced something called OneLake. And the idea of OneLake is to take the data lakes, which are very messy and very complicated. They're nothing more than storage accounts provisioned by developers.
And it was just another layer of distributed data in a way that you couldn't really get at, wasn't it?
That's right. So what we did with OneLake is saying, why should data lakes be any more complex than, let's say, OneDrive or Dropbox, right? We all use OneDrive, Dropbox, and products like that. Eventually, the data sits in some storage system in the cloud, but we never think about the storage system. We use them as a SaaS service. So the idea of OneLake was to just, provide a data lake as a SaaS service, just built into Fabric, and to really resonate with customers. It does a few things. It gives you storage whenever you need it. You'd never have to worry about provisioning storage accounts. It just works. We also surprised the industry when we announced that with OneLake, Microsoft and Fabric, Microsoft is completely moving away from proprietary data formats.
The open format.
Yes.
And that was also very powerful.
And natively embracing open source data formats in the heart of Fabric, because all of the data in Fabric is based upon Apache, Parquet, and Delta Lake. And we just announced support for Iceberg as well. So, customers really appreciate that about Fabric because, so much data sitting in proprietary data formats that makes things very, very complicated. And the third thing is what you referenced, which is, with OneLake, where, it also acts as a virtualization layer. So you might have data sitting in other parts of Azure. You might have data sitting on premises. You probably have data sitting in AWS or in GCP, you can just create shortcuts, right? You don't have to migrate the data over to Azure or Fabric first. And customers really don't like the word migrate, right?
No.
Because to them,
It fills them with dread and anguish and anxiety, doesn't
They're
it?
not like keen on the word transformation either, I find.
that one I don't know, but migrate, like every hyperscaler beginning every conversation with first migrate to my platform, and then we will talk about
it'll
this.
all be fine.
It'll all be
Yeah.
fine. You know, so with Fabric, we said, let's embrace the idea that data lives everywhere.
Right.
And let's focus on getting customers to business value and not on migration. So OneLake really makes that possible with just, by creating shortcuts and letting the data, wherever it lives, really, accrue to Fabric, accrue to OneLake.
And there's an openness about that approach, isn't there? So you've got the open data format. So you're not proprietary. You've got the data can be anywhere. It doesn't matter which platform it is, but you can bring the functionality together. And I think when you embrace that open culture, people are much more accepting of adopting the approach, and it becomes much easier to get the organization to move their data journey forward.
Absolutely. And so that's the second promise, really a lake-centric and open architecture about Fabric. The third promise is really about empowering every business user, right? Because what's the point of data sitting beautifully in your lake if nobody's using it? Right. And that's why, Fabric, Power BI itself is just by far the world's largest BI platform, is built into Fabric, with tens and tens of millions of business users using Power BI every single month. But it's not just Power BI. It's built into all of the Office products. It's built into Excel, it's built into Teams, it's built into PowerPoint, it's built into SharePoint. And that's really important because, business users want to get value in the products that they use already. But it's not just built in, all the permissions just flow, right? Like if you open up, Excel will discover what artifacts in Fabric you have access to, what data warehouses, lake houses, semantic models, etc. In Excel itself. And then you are off building a pivot table.
And then Copilot within Excel.
And
so you've got
so
then you've got AI built into your UI, if you like, that then could get back to this massive fabric behind it.
That's exactly right. So Excel itself now acts as a canvas on top of Fabric, right? Which is amazing for enterprise customers because all of the security and permissions just apply in Excel.
Right.
Because look, if you export your data out into Excel, which is what you have to do with every other platform outside of Fabric, well, you've lost control, right? People can email that Excel file around, it gets stale, people are making decisions based on ancient data, incorrect data, etc. And all of those problems are solved with Fabric. So,
So in terms of the main blocker then that's been there for that, multi-decade period, are you feeling that it's either on the verge of being now completely solved for, or you actually have completely solved for that as an adoption blocker?
Yeah, I think we've taken giant steps forward. And so we talked about empowering every business user. And, the power today is with business. It's not with IT. Right.
That's true.
And, starting from business and working backwards really, really resonates with customers. And the final promise of Fabric is really just the AI capabilities that are built in. So every part of Fabric has a built-in Copilot, which today you would expect from Microsoft, but because Fabric is end-to-end, it accelerates.
It wouldn't be a Microsoft conversation without Copilot these days.
I think Copilot has now become an industry thing. But you're absolutely right. But it does help you with the entire data journey, whether you're connecting to data, whether you're reshaping data, you're building machine learning models, you're building AI applications, or you're building Power BI reports. Fabric helps you accelerate the entire data journey because it is end-to-end, and that's been really exciting for customers.
And that was a big theme of the keynote as well at the beginning about removing toil, increasing productivity, empowerment. Yeah, that was the word that was used. And I think there's this maturity curve that's been hit with data where you can almost abstract away to a point where the pain's gone.
And
that was the big thing because managing data used to be a very painful thing.
You've got an architectural diagram in your head, haven't you?
I've got scars.
Does it have loads of little blocks at the bottom with loads of different data sources
and arrows,
big thing across the top?
And
arrows both ways.
But the thing
he's an architect. He loves this stuff.
I can tell.
But the thing I really like about it as well is with the integration of the technology, the non-functional issues have gone. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And I remember the days where you really had to worry about it, and the fact that that's now been taken away and it's a planetary scale type database, it makes me happy, Dave.
You're absolutely right because if you're in Fabric and let's say you're spinning up a Jupyter notebook, right? Just to talk about something. Well, most of the platforms, so you don't actually open up a Jupyter notebook. You actually spin up a Spark cluster. You configure storage. You configure networking. You can make all of the stuff to work. And then, if you get to all of these things and they're done correctly, then maybe you'll spin up a notebook, right? In Fabric, well, why should it be so hard, right? All you do is send you a notebook, and it's just a SaaS platform. Just like when you use Word or PowerPoint or Excel, you're not spinning up clusters. You're not configuring.
Right.
Like imagine if every business user, first of all, had to go spin up clusters.
Configure your cluster, get your networking address right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what the world of data is today, and that's Fabric completely changes it, right? So it moves it to the world of SaaS, where things just work. You're focused on your business, your value, not bits and bytes.
So we've talked about Copilot through things like Excel being kind of a UI layer that can consume much more accessible data sources.
Yep.
I'm interested in within that model how you see also the much talked about agents fitting in, because agentic is an enormous theme this year, I think, right across the industry, and certainly reflected in the conference. And sort of for my money, once you have dealt with the fabric in what we've just been talking about, the application of agents to business systems is going to be really the next massive revolution, I would think. Is that a point that resonates with you? Do you see that any differently? And how do you see agents playing out across the top of Fabric?
No, you're absolutely right. And, if you just look at the evolution, agents are the next logical step.
Right.
So if Copilot helps you get the task that you're trying to accomplish at that particular moment done, well, what about all the other moments,
Right.
And why shouldn't agents be able to act on your behalf, do the things that you need done, so that, when you're working, you're highly, highly productive. Like you have a multiplier on effect on your work. Some examples, like let's say you're a salesperson, you have a whole bunch of leads coming in, right? Like the agent can qualify those leads for you. They can go ahead and collect information, can rank them to see which are the ones that are most likely to close. If you have a customer service request comes in, some of those requests the agent can respond, because the answers are known and they're certified. Others it can say escalate to you and say, hey, I think the answer is this. Can you please confirm before I get back to the customer? But there's just so much opportunity to leverage these Gen AI capabilities to automate, to make it more proactive, right? And that's essentially the opportunity with agents. And we're seeing tons and tons of traction. The products we recommend for building agents are obviously the Azure AI Foundry, which we announced, as well as Copilot Studio. And the good news is that, hey, both of these platforms, they are deeply integrated with Fabric today.
Right.
So that, if you and the way we tell customers is get your data ready in Fabric, use Azure AI Foundry or use Copilot Studio, depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
To drive into it,
and to jump right into it, and so that it just.
I'd always wondered why we hadn't got to, and this is probably in the last generation. So, been thinking about conceptually this for a little while, which is, kind of whatever your kind of home version of Alexa is, or the Apple one, or whatever it might be, is having a business version of that in the boardroom that is basically the data and the personality of your company that you can query in real time. How close do you think we are to that?
Yeah, we are getting closer, but we have some distance to go, right? And let me expand on this a little bit, right? You'll see tons and tons of demos on the internet, right? You take a few tables, throw it together, and then ChatGPT or some other LLM, you ask some questions, it'll answer your question, it'll show up some visualizations, and you think the job is done, The reality is, in enterprise situations, there's tons and tons of data. A lot of the data is not clean,
And the context is immensely complex.
That's right. The context is immensely complex. There's a lot of semantic meaning to the data that isn't obvious if you look at a column that is titled, has an that goes by an acronym.
Right. You're right.
What does VTB mean? Variance to budget. If you're sitting at Microsoft, but hey, it could mean something completely different to another company. So, and the thing with data platforms like Power BI and Fabric is that we've got to be right, because people make business decisions based upon the data sitting in Power BI, and you have to be able to bank on it.
And if you ever lose the trust in the data, you're gone. That's it. It's incredibly difficult to build it back. It's in any form of data management, whether it be operational or business related. Once the trust goes, people do not want to go near it anymore.
Right.
And you could easily break the trust by implementing something, and then it just gets it wrong, and the business does something odd, and then that's it.
That's exactly right, because you have to be right. There's no room for error, because if you make mistakes, then you're going to break trust. And if you're going to break trust, then they're not going to come back to your product. They're not going to trust that the data that there, is something that they can go make business decisions on. So those are some of the challenges that are getting in, that need to be addressed. We're also seeing, security being a critically important role, right? Because, what I can see as a business user is defined by the permissions I have access to, right? And
so if you're just making voice requests on almost anything that could be going on in your organization, how on earth do you verify the identity of the requester?
That's correct. And then once you identify, once that person is properly authenticated, well, what data does he or she have access to? Yeah. If you're a sales manager for California, you can see the California data, but you can't see all US data. If you're the CFO or the CFO's team that's working on earnings releases, sure, you can see the earnings release, the data, but you can't if you're just a product manager working in the company, because then that makes you an insider, and so there's lots and lots of critical governance that needs to be applied. So what we are seeing is that we are moving very, very quickly. Power BI has really strong capabilities around natural language. We introduced something called AI skills that allow you to create data experts, right? Within Fabric.
Nice.
And then you can query those data experts with natural language. You can call them through a REST API. You can invoke them as you're building an agent in Copilot Studio or Azure AI Foundry. Cool. And then it interrogates your data. But what this AI skill does is it respects all of your permissions. It knows who you are. So it says, hey, it applies your role level security, your column level security. So you can never, ever see something that you don't have permissions to see, because it's built into Fabric. It's using all of the security layers in Fabric, right? So that's what we're doing. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of customers using these capabilities today. And I will tell you, we have a long way to go because the world out there is very complex. Lots of large systems have something like 800 tables. Right. Some tables have anywhere from 10 columns to maybe a few hundred columns. Billions and billions and billions of rows of data. So there's a lot of complexity out there. So there's so we're making a ton of progress. It's moving very quickly, and we have a long way to go.
So when you think about real-time intelligence, and you look maybe cast out maybe 2 years or 3 years with an ever increasing rate of innovation that we're seeing, and over that time a huge amount of data that's been sort of discovered and rediscovered and then integrated into fabrics.
Yep.
How close do you think we are to things like AI on the board? So like an agent that you can talk to that actually is a board advisor.
Agentic CEO. Now there's an idea.
Cloud Realities.
Agentic producer. I'm up for an agentic Marcel, and we can just not
something that's a bit more effective.
I think we're starting to see some of that today.
Yeah.
Okay. But
there's some people who've done it like quirkily, haven't they? But not compellingly yet, I would suggest.
And I think the difference is between what you're using it for, right? It's incredibly effective for you to do research, right? So let's say you're preparing for a board meeting, and the first thing you do in Microsoft when you have senior meetings is that there's a million acronyms that nobody understands, and you'd hope that we don't let the acronyms filter all the way up to a board, but you'd be wrong.
They keep going.
So, but what we're finding is it's actually really helpful for board members, senior leaders to understand the context of the material that's being presented to them. So agents and Copilot is incredibly valuable.
Right.
We've also we onboard senior leaders all the time, and some of the senior leaders coming into Microsoft are like telling us about how incredibly useful the Copilot is in helping them get up to speed, and
because it can educate them.
It can educate them and allow them to ask stupid questions.
That is is one of the excellent features of Copilot. You can ask it a stupid question.
But you're going to say
when you ask it a stupid
no
question.
judgment.
There's no shame. There's no shame in it.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of that today, and it is evolving quickly. But you made a point about real-time intelligence, and I just want to spend a few minutes on that, if I may. What's really interesting is that there's so much data that's out there that's coming at you in real time. Data from IoT devices, all the sensors out there, data, application telemetry, logs. So much data. And this real-time data is very different from the type of data you normally see in transactional databases or data warehouses. It's typically XML, it's JSON, it's semi-structured, the schemas shift all the time. It comes at you in very high volumes.
That's the point I was going to make, the vast volume of it.
Volumes, but it's also semi-structured. XML and JSON, you can't just write SQL on top of it, right? And the schemas, they're not standard. They drift all the time. And, so traditionally, it's been very hard to work with real-time data. And that's why if you look at most companies on most scenarios on the planet, they're looking at batch data. Data at best, which is a day old, sometimes a week old, sometimes a month old, right? That's the state of the world today. And a good way to think about this is like, let's say you're driving a car, and it's like driving your car by looking at the rearview mirror, right?
Marcel does that. He takes the oncoming traffic regularly. He did actually do that once. For the record.
I will not ask any further questions. But that's the state of the world today. And the reason is it's been really, really complicated. Like you need to do very complex things like spin up Kafka clusters or Spark streaming jobs. And what we did in Fabric is really think about how can it be radically simpler. And that's what real-time intelligence is about in Fabric. It allows you to work with any real-time data from Azure devices, IoT devices, Kafka clusters, even AWS Kinesis or Google PubSub we support out of the box, right? So it allows you to work with real-time data, but we also make it drop-dead simple. Everything shows up in a standard real-time hub. You can use all the data flows into something called an event house. You can use natural language to query your event house. You can put Power BI on top of it and see what your data looks like. We also introduced something called Data Activator, which has been incredible. Like every time I go to a customer and I'm talking to a non-IT person, a CMO, a sales manager, a CFO, and I talk about Data Activator, they get so excited because what Data Activator does is it lets you watch any of your data, either real-time data or batch data or a mix of both. Look for patterns that are important to you, like a customer service queue getting too long, or leads that have been not followed up, or shopping carts that are being abandoned, right?
Or it could be potentially like OT data, so like
OT data,
pipelines that have got troubling patterns.
Correct. Or, supply chain issues, and you can just say, hey, if you find this pattern, go take this business action automatically, right? It could be as simple as notifying the right person on Teams or email, but it could be as complex as designing a business process in Power Automate, right? Insert this into SAP, raise a ticket in ServiceNow, all of those things.
And of course, with agent automation on something like that, you could also implement it straight away.
That's exactly right. So so you can call an agent to go take an action on behalf of a business user.
You could envisage a point where businesses themselves, if they're fully agentic with that kind of underpinning data capability, could be like self-healing and develop themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that every business person absolutely loves it. But it's also not it's a tool that's a no-code experience. You drag and drop, you point and click, right? So it's and there's nothing like it in market right now. So it's just being part of your data stack. Working with both batch and real-time data. It's been incredibly exciting for customers.
For shipping that. I mean, that's an impressive bit of software.
Yeah, thank you. It's we're just seeing the use cases blowing up. I think we have over 5,000 customers.
Have you got a favorite?
I think Denner Motorsports. Okay, so they run the Porsche Cup in Brazil. And they cars today, racing cars are giant computers.
Right.
They spew a ton of telemetry. Right now, traditionally, to work with this telemetry took them more than 24 hours. Okay, but it's not terribly helpful in the race that you're running right now. Right.
That's true.
And that's what they get with Fabric real-time intelligence. The data is streaming out of their cars into Fabric and allowing the people that are helping the driver make decisions in real time, right? As the cars are literally racing around the track. So they can make adjustments, they can give the drivers coaching, they can make the pit stop more efficient. Incredible. That's what Denner Motorsports does. With real-time intelligence, it's just crazy,
So much going on. And so much is shipped to date of stuff that you can use today in your business that it can be overwhelming, I think, in terms of businesses trying to take all of this on and actually adopt it and beyond proof of concept, like technical proof of concept, like actually getting it out there and getting it usable. Maybe just to wrap up our conversation a bit today, what advice would you give to leaders in those organizations, particularly the ones that are tasked with dealing with an organization's data and maybe wrestling with it over 10 years? It's like another onslaught of new capability that they've got to try and integrate. Where did this start?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the principle that I found to be most effective is what we think about as discipline at the core and flexibility at the edge. Okay, let me explain what that means. So discipline at the core is having a set of core data products that are tied to your core organizational processes, right? So obviously every organization needs to sell, right? So you can imagine a data product that gives you all the core data around how your sales are doing, how your leads are converting, how you're meeting quota, you're not meeting quota, how the different divisions, the products, etc. are doing, right? So this gives you a strong foundation. This gives you the discipline at the core because you want people to make decisions based on good, trusted data, right? And this typically is built by either an IT team or a business IT team. And to make the challenges, if you sometimes build this discipline at the core, but nobody uses it, not great.
Right.
But usually the customers that do this, they connect it to a business process, like a quarterly sales review or a monthly sales review, or, and when you connect the two together, it has teeth, it gets adoption.
So you take like an outside-in business problem-centric view of it rather than like a data out.
That's exactly right. So we think about that as the core, right? Discipline at the core. Now, if that's all you did, it's not good enough. Because what happens is that every request from every business person goes to a central team, and A, they're overwhelmed, and B, that the response times will be terribly slow and not exactly what the business folks are looking for.
Right.
So that's when we think about flexibility at the edge. And flexibility at the edge is about empowering business with a common tooling like Fabric, like Power BI, like Excel, but enabling them to tailor what IT provides to meet many of their own needs through no-code experiences, right? And this combination is powerful because I see customers falling into one of two traps. They either try to, they don't have the discipline at the core, so it's just chaos everywhere. Or the other trap where they try to, stamp out all the self-service and say, only use the trusted data, in which case what happens?
In a very specific way.
In a very specific way, in which case business is very frustrated. All they do is they export the data out of whatever tool you put in front of them.
Put it in their own.
And everything happens in Excel. Yes. Right. And then you wonder, why nobody's using your beautiful thing. So we do think that this combination of discipline at the core and flexibility at the edge is critically important because it gives customers a great way forward.
Well, look, thank you for that. And thank you for the advice, especially given the onslaught of great stuff that's coming this week. It was brilliant to see you. And thank you for taking the time out, Arun.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for being here at Ignite.
Likewise. Now, before we let you go, we have been running a nigh unscientific study to try and identify.
It's become scientific because of the obsession you have around it, David.
It's framework, Rob. I thought you'd appreciate that with your
I love a good framework. Yeah, makes the inner architect in me go smile.
So we're looking at the pizza possibilities in Chicago, famous for the deep pan pizza. And so we've been trying to try them as we've been coming. And so we're asking all of our guests what your favorite is.
So
now, where are you? Where are you on pizza in Chicago, Arun?
I do love deep dish pizza, but, I love two toppings that people, when I order them, people always look at me funny. And I'm not sure if I'm the only one. I love to have jalapenos because they're spicy.
I love jalapenos.
I love jalapenos.
Yes.
But I also love pineapple. And I want both of them on the same pizza at the same time, right?
I did not expect us to get this controversial.
Let's be honest. If you buy a sharing pizza setup, I think you're going to have that pizza to yourself.
It comes with its advantages.
So do you put anything else on with those?
Well, then I put a whole bunch of veggies on it as well. But whenever people see me order jalapenos and pineapple and put it on the same pizzas, look, I get some strange looks.
It's tremendous work. I'm going to try it.
Are you going for it? Well, actually, you do have to try it because you never know, do you?
I'm in that camp of ham and pineapple. I'm good with. I like the sweet and salty. It's nice. But yeah, so there are two big behemoths apparently in Chicago. If you get a chance the next couple of days, there's New Malnati's. That's right, Malnati's. Yeah,
Malnati's. Yeah.
And then there's Giordano's. So we've been to Malnati's. It's very nice. The crust is very much more like a short crust that surprised me. It was very, very nice. I'm going to try and get Giordano's before the end of the week to finish our scientific take on the situation.
It's the important discussion of the moment.
I think it is.
Well, I have my work cut out for me, so I need to go to 2 additional places I wasn't planning to. But hey,
Just rammed your schedule even more.
Well,
Absolutely.
we wish you luck. Enjoy the rest of the week, Aaron. Thanks again.
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So that's it from day one. Hopefully that's given you an insight into the overall themes of the show, as well as deep diving a little bit on Azure Data. How have you found day one?
It's been all right, actually. I quite liked it. I think I quite like Chicago, and I do like this conference centre. It's a lovely conference centre. I'm quite taken by it.
I know you were impressed with the cheese board and the exec tray.
And also the catering is pretty good as well. There's a big focus on cheese, though. But I like cheese, so we're all good.
Rob has just eaten a bag of popcorn that was half toffee and half cheese popcorn with a block of cheese.
I was slightly confused, but you know what? It worked.
Well, let's see what tomorrow's got in store for us, eh?
Indeed. And if you would like to discuss any of the topics we've discussed on this conference show and how they might impact you or your business, please get in touch with cloudrealities@capgemini.com. We're all on X and LinkedIn, and we'd love to hear from you, so feel free to connect and DM if you have any questions that we can tackle. And of course, please rate and subscribe to our podcast. It really helps us improve the show. A huge thanks to Arun, our sound and editing wizards Ben and Louis, our producer Marcel, and of course to all you listeners. See you back in Microsoft's reality soon.